Hearty shalom to you, Jeffrey Seif here. Glad you're there. I say it all the time, and I mean it every time I say it. We are on a journey in this 27th chapter of the book of Acts. Paul has appealed to go to Rome. He wants a trial. He's a citizen, and he knows his rights, and he is going to leave Caesarea Maritime. We're told in chapter 27 that he is going to be placed in the custody in verse 1 of a centurion named Julius of the Augustan cohort. We're told as well, if you look in verse 3, that he was treated kindly by the centurion. A centurion, by the way, in the Roman military was the highest rank that a non-elite could achieve. People were given rank on the basis of privilege and class, and it depended on the wealth of the family. However, you could be a commoner and through dint of determination work your way up, and a centurion was a rank that a commoner could achieve. And it's based on dint of determination, competency, and tenure in the system. And it's interesting, the New Testament, by the way, portrays them in a good light. Here, a centurion, Luke says, is kindly disposed toward Paul. Luke told us earlier it was a centurion named Cornelius who was kindly disposed toward Peter, who was the first to receive the Lord. And gospel writers tell us it was the centurion there at the cross who says, surely this is the Son of God. So I think that's interesting, the way the military or the police are painted in a good light. I note that because, I have police background myself. In any case, it's always nice to see government officials treating people well. Aside from that, when you survey the text, Paul wasn't treated well, but it's not that people are turning against him, it's circumstances. We're on a boat ride, we're told, and I'll tell you, I've been out there in the Mediterranean, and the waters are extremely precarious. Once we were heading into Rhodes, this is on an ocean liner. It was so choppy, the captain said, forget it. Don't even want to dock there. Afraid that the boat might get banged up a bit. And I was on a boat, by the way, that went to Santa Marini, an island in the Mediterranean. Beautiful island. My son just got back from a trip there. He was in Athens, and he and his wife flew into Santa Marini. I went there by boat on the Sea Diamond, and it sunk there a year later. There wasn't, it didn't dock in a harbor. It docked out away from the island, and tenders would come and pick up passengers and ferry them in. And it got so choppy out there, the boat was anchored, but it drifted into the reef and it breached the hull. And the net result is that it went down in the harbor. 2 people died. Very, very precarious. Well, we're told here, Paul is in these waters, and Luke, his biographer, says in verse 4, the winds were against us. In verse 4. In verse 7, we're tearing on, difficulties aside. In verse 7, the wind did not allow us to go further. In verse 8, he goes on to say, and we were coasting along with difficulty. In verse 9, that it was already dangerous. We're told in verse 12, the harbor where they were was unsuitable for harboring. There's adversity here, and it just struck me in preparing to give a talk on it that Luke clearly wants to show that Paul's travels are checkered by difficult circumstances, dire straits. Now, if you've read ahead, Paul's had some shipwrecks, and the waters are precarious, and he's right there in the middle of it all. And I want to alight upon that simply because I wanted to raise the question for my talk. I want to talk to you and raise the question, why do bad things happen to good people? I mentioned that the journey here is checkered by all kinds of adversity, never mind the fact that it's unfair that Paul should be in that situation in the first place. He got jacked up by the police in Jerusalem. He was treated unfairly by the authorities in Caesarea Maritime. He languished there. He appeals to Rome, and now there's all this difficulty. Why is that? Of course, the book of Job wrestles with the question about bad things happening to otherwise good people. You not only see it in the Older Testament, you see it in the New here. And I'm raising a question, and usually I advise against raising questions if you don't have an answer for them. But it's hard to say how it is that God deals with people's lives. I don't know what your life is, the circumstances that you deal with, the tough sailing. I know it's enough for me to make sense of my own life, the circumstances, the disappointments. I've dealt with death. My first wife, may she rest in peace, died of ovarian cancer. I was paralyzed from the neck down with an exotic disease. I've had to wrestle with circumstances in health and wealth and things that didn't all go my way. Now, they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I am a pretty tough old bird. At 64, I'm pretty stout. I work out. I'm in the gym just about every day, or I'm running. I want to be pretty strong, and I'm reasonably optimistic and confident, and so forth. But I've had my share of adversity, and if we lift our shirts up, we all have stab marks. Life, it just gets that way. It just is what it is, and God works through it all to make us the people that we are and to get us where we need to go. Paul needed to go to Rome, and so God got him there, and lo and behold, he's on his way. And it's not an easy way, but I think that in evangelicalism today, Christianity is marketed as, oh, you're having problems in life, accept Jesus. And it's not to say Jesus doesn't solve problems, but sometimes it's the gospel is the source of our problems because of spiritual warfare and the like. It's the bad news. The God news is the good news, and the good news is the God news, that he watches over his word to perform it. And the truth of the matter is, we see Paul pressing against dire circumstance, but it's all making Paul the man who he is and getting Paul where he needs to go for God's good purposes. Do I understand it all? No, but he is the potter and I'm the clay. Who knows? Maybe you're out there, and you're in a place in life where it's not all going your way. And I would tell you to lift your eyes and be prayerful and careful and see what God has to say, because you never know how he's working in your life, even now, even with all that. Well, so much for all that. Jeffrey Seif here signing out. I'll talk to you again in a week. God bless.